Reborn. This time, I swore I wouldn't repeat a single mistake. Not one intersection with the woman who once destroyed my life. She told me to give up my dreams, to stay home, to become a house husband while she chased her ambitions. I smiled, nodded, and secretly applied to graduate school instead. She said she'd manage the finances, that she'd support our home. But behind that kindness, she was funding her first love, so I quietly moved the money elsewhere. Then came the wedding. She said she was ready to marry me, but I had already chosen to run. Because in my last life I was blind, my child was switched at birth with hers and her first loves. My real child died young. Theirs I raised into success with my own hands. And when I grew old, when I had nothing left to give, they repaid me by pushing me off a mountain, together, so they could reunite. But fate wasn't finished with me. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at my graduation year, the day everything began. My hands were full of pots and pans when it hit me, literally. Everything clattered to the floor as Robin's mother scolded me for being careless. But her voice faded into the background because I was too stunned, too overwhelmed by the joy of rebirth. I had another chance. Today was the last day to register for graduate school. I couldn't waste a second. I ran straight to the campus internet cafe, my heart pounding with purpose. My roommates stared as I logged in to sign up. "Weren't you going to be a house husband?" they asked, surprised. I smiled. "This is a new era," I said. "Why should I trap myself in a kitchen when I can build a future for the country?" Their eyes widened. Maybe for the first time, they actually admired me. When I hit that final submit button, it felt like the world opened up again. In my past life, I'd listened to her, Robin. She told me to settle down, to take the inheritance my parents left me and become a stay-at-home husband. I did. I cooked, cleaned, cared for her parents, and waited for her to come home from her bright, promising medical career. She moved to the city, grew more successful, and her first love, Domingo, followed her there. I was left behind, a forgotten shadow in the countryside. When she finally gave birth, I rushed to the hospital, only to find Domingo there too. I fetched water, wiped sweat, took care of her every need, while she dragged her weak body just to pour him a drink. And me? If I dared sit for even a second, she'd lash out, say I was lazy, useless, unworthy. Still, I kept silent. I told myself I'd at least raise our child with love. I watched that baby grow, from a smiling infant into a cold, distant man who barely visited home. I thought he was just busy, until the truth came crashing down on me in my 65th year. He wasn't my son. He was Domingo's. Robin, my wife, had lived with them all along. And the boy I thought was mine looked me in the eyes and said, "You're not my real dad. You're just a bumpkin who doesn't belong in our lives." Even then, I refused to divorce. I refused to let go of the life I'd poured everything into. But in the end, they didn't need my consent. They just needed a mountain cliff. I remember their hands pushing, the wind, the betrayal, and then darkness. Until I woke up again at the start, back to the moment I could finally change it all. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "That's why I became your child instead. If I had a choice, I never would have wanted you to raise me." In that moment, something inside me broke. Every ounce of strength drained from my body. All those years, every sacrifice, every night I stayed awake for him, were for nothing. Everything I did was just stitching wedding clothes for someone else's happiness. Regret hit me like a storm. Why had I ever given up my dreams? Why did I let myself become a house husband when all they saw in me was a tool? And then his foot struck my chest. The world tilted, the wind roared, and I fell. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the year of my graduation. The moment I stepped onto campus again, déjà vu wrapped around me like fog. There was Robin's mother, frowning, muttering curses under her breath. Robin stood quietly beside her, not saying a word. Domingo, him, was there too, the picture of false politeness. He gently patted Mrs. Kim's back. "Don't be angry, Auntie. Look, brother-in-law is back. He didn't mean to upset you." He reached out his hand to me, smiling like a saint. "Come on, apologize to Aunt Kim." I turned away. I didn't need his fake kindness. Robin's mother's face darkened. "Don't bother with him," she snapped, pulling 2 red envelopes from her purse, one for Robin, one for Domingo. They stood there, hand in hand, smiling like a picture-perfect family, while I was treated like the outsider. Domingo hesitated, glancing at me. "But brother-in-law didn't get one?" Mrs. Kim gave a cold snort. Before I could say a word, Robin reached into her pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. "You don't need it," she said flatly. "He does. He lost his parents and lives alone. It's hard for him. That was my money. Our money. And she was handing it to her first love right in front of me. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped forward, voice trembling with anger. "Robin, are you seriously giving my money to him right in front of me? Did you even ask me first?" Her expression turned icy. "You have—" "Plenty. I only took a little." "How can you be so heartless?" "Heartless?" The word made me laugh. "So he was an orphan, and I wasn't? Did that mean my pain didn't count? My parents' hard-earned savings were just charity funds now?" Domingo's eyes filled with fake tears. "Please don't fight because of me. If she doesn't want to give it, I won't take it." He sighed softly and walked away. The perfect act. Robin ran after him immediately. I watched as they argued outside. For a moment, she resisted. Then with a sigh, she pressed the money into his hand. I tried to follow, but Mrs. Kim's grip tightened around my arm. "Our family doesn't welcome men as small-minded as you," she hissed. Robin finally returned, her face cold, eyes void of any warmth. "Justin, I'm too disappointed in you," she said quietly. Then, pretending to give in, she added, "Fine. If you don't want me to give him money, I won't anymore." But I knew better. They would never stop taking from me, not willingly. As soon as they left, I went straight to the bank. My hands shook as I checked my balance. The numbers told the truth. Large withdrawals made long before today. Robin had been draining my account for who knows how long. I changed the password immediately. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally taking my life back. Back at school, I went to see my mentor, the one who had believed in me when no one else did. Every award, every project, every dream I had once buried under marriage and housework, she had been behind it all. When she heard I wanted to take the graduate exam, her face lit up. "Would you like to follow me to South City University of Technology?" she asked. "My professor there needs someone for mechanical research. We leave next month. I'll even teach you for free." It felt like the heavens had opened. South City, my dream school. I didn't hesitate. I agreed again and again, heart pounding with hope. Later, during a quiet moment, I started checking train tickets. The price wasn't much. I pressed my hands together and smiled. Soon, I'll finally be free. When I got home that night, the clock was already whispering midnight. The apartment wasn't big, but every inch of it screamed Robin, her favorite colors, her furniture, her taste. And now I was leaving it all behind. I didn't feel sad for the memories, only for the money I'd wasted. So I began packing. Piece by piece, I filled a bag with anything valuable enough to sell. While sorting through drawers, I found something, a scarf I'd embroidered for her years ago. Back then, I wasn't good at delicate work. My fingers bled, my patience ran thin. She saw me once, laughed, and said, "So dramatic. If you can't pay attention, that's your fault." I remember how her words crushed me. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I really wasn't good enough. But now, holding that scarf under the light, I realized it actually looked pretty decent. Imperfect, but full of effort. I folded it gently. Maybe I'd wear it this winter. After selling what I could, I came home to an emptier room and a lighter heart. When the time came to leave, I'd take everything with me. Robin would get nothing. She stumbled in late that night, cheeks flushed, the faint smell of alcohol around her. "I had dinner with them," she said casually. I said nothing. Her perfume was stronger than before, that expensive, musky scent I'd smelled earlier in the day. She must have been sitting close. Too close. She noticed my silence and slipped off her coat, pretending nothing was wrong. And just like that, the quiet between us said more than words ever could. She said softly, "He fell, and I just helped him back." "Don't overthink it." I only replied, For once, I didn't argue. I'd seen this scene too many times before. Domingo appearing out of nowhere, conveniently hurt, always needing her care. And Robin, ever the kind-hearted doctor, could never walk away. But I knew how it ended. Every single time. She'd leave with him, their shadows blending in the distance while I stood there calling after her, my throat raw, my heart breaking, and she wouldn't even turn around. Anyone with eyes could see what was going on between them, only I had been the fool. A fool who took an entire lifetime to finally see the truth. So I said nothing. I just went back to my room, pulled out the study materials my teacher had given me, and tried to lose myself in them. But then the door creaked open. Robin didn't bother to knock. I hurriedly pushed the papers aside. She couldn't find out about my plans for graduate school. She didn't seem suspicious. Instead, she smiled faintly and said, "My mom picked an auspicious date for the wedding, the first day of next month." She wasn't asking. She was announcing it. And the irony? That was the very same day I'd be leaving with my teacher. The day I'd disappear from her life. Perfect. I almost wanted to see her face when she realized I was gone. I simply nodded, pretending to agree. She took it as normal and continued, "My mom sent the pots and pans for you." Then she reached for my hand, her voice suddenly soft. "I know you're not great at cooking, but that's okay. We can cook together, right?" That gentle look, I remembered it too well. In my previous life, she had said the exact same words. But once we were married, that sweetness turned to ice. She was always too busy to come home. Her parents would scold me for every dish that didn't turn out right. And when she found out, she only said, "Since you're home all day, just practice more. Don't upset the elders." Later, I learned she cooked plenty, just not for me. Domingo never went hungry. Even in old age, his hands were still soft and uncalloused, cared for by her devotion. I forced down the disgust twisting in my chest and lowered my head, pretending to be shy. She smiled, satisfied, and left soon after. The moment the door closed, I collapsed into the chair, exhaling a long, shaky breath. People always said I was lucky, an orphan who had married up. At our wedding in my past life, the crowd had gathered around Robin, praising her, comforting her, celebrating her. When they spoke to me, it was only to remind me to be grateful, to behave, to know my place. No one ever mentioned that my grades had been just as good as hers, that my family's wealth had supported the Kim family for years. And in the end, the only title I ever earned was the man who married Robin Kim. This time, I didn't want that title. This time, I would live for myself. By the day before the wedding, I had sold nearly everything inside that apartment. Robin never noticed. She was too busy to care about furniture or decor. She left all the wedding planning to her mother anyway. But that afternoon, she asked me to meet her at the bridal shop. When I arrived, she was sitting outside scrolling her phone. I barely had time to greet her when the curtain behind her opened, and out stepped Domingo. He wore a perfectly tailored white suit, smiling as if he owned the place. "Look, doesn't this suit look—" He stopped when he saw me. Robin looked up, startled, then quickly said, "Domingo was just trying on the suit for you. Don't misunderstand. You study engineering. Of course you wouldn't have the same sense of aesthetics as someone who studied design." Her words stung, but her excuse was worse. Domingo had makeup on, hairstyled, everything polished. He wasn't trying it on. He was posing. I stayed silent, but Robin didn't like that. She shoved a gray suit into my hands, the exact color I hated. "Try this." Domingo wore it earlier. It looked amazing. I resisted, but she pushed me toward the fitting room like a child. The fabric clung awkwardly. I was taller, broader. It didn't fit at all. Even the clerk suggested we try a different size. I sighed and began changing out, but the pants caught on my underwear, tugging them down. And that's when she barged in. Startled, I grabbed at my clothes, covering myself. We weren't even married yet in this life, and her boldness left me frozen. She just scoffed. "What's there to be shy about? I'll see everything sooner or later. Let me check where it doesn't fit." Before I could stop her, she yanked my pants up, forcing the jacket closed around me. It squeezed so tight I could barely breathe. I can't," I gasped, the air cutting from my chest. And then a sudden sharp pain seared through my back. The clerk burst in, horrified. "There's blood." "Are you insane? If it doesn't fit, don't force it." My old wound, the one from moving furniture, had torn open again. The pain was so intense I could hardly stand. Domingo, ever the actor, rushed over as if to help, but he didn't even close the curtain. Shame burned in my throat. Still, I was too weak to protest. With the clerk's help, I finally changed back into my clothes, trembling. Robin looked shaken for a moment. Maybe for the first time she actually felt guilty. She helped me into a taxi and took me to the hospital. I couldn't stop the tears, but strangely, I felt calm. Even the doctor scolded her, calling her careless, asking what kind of girlfriend would do something like this. Robin just kept her head bowed, silent. When it was over, she took my hand and whispered softly, "I'm sorry." She tried to explain herself, saying softly, "I just thought it looked good. That's why I insisted you wear it." Then, as if that could make up for everything, she added, "Tomorrow I'll get you a bigger one, okay? Even now, she couldn't fully let go. She still wanted me to wear that same suit I despised. I wiped my tears quietly, forcing a gentle smile. All right, I said. Her face lit up instantly like a child who'd gotten her way. See? I knew you wouldn't make a fuss. Of course not. Why would I? This wedding didn't mean anything to me anymore. The chaos tomorrow, the more of it, the better. But whatever flicker of guilt, Robin had vanished the moment we stepped inside and saw Domingo. He was crouched by the doorway, tears streaming down his face. I got kicked out, he sobbed. The money you gave me, it wasn't enough for rent. Robin's first reaction wasn't concern for me. It was suspicion. She turned sharply, her voice tight. You changed the bank password? For a second, my heart went cold. A dark realization began to form. What do you mean? I asked. Robin shook off my hand and glared. Why didn't you tell me? Domingo was waiting for that money. That money? My parents' money. It hit me then. Robin had been giving my savings to Domingo. No wonder in my last life I'd ended up broke no matter how hard I tried to save. It had been them draining me dry all along. Domingo wiped his eyes, his tone suddenly sharp. Why are you acting like this? Robin's money is your money too, right? She only gave it to me under your name. I let out a low, humorless laugh. What a convenient name, huh? I stepped closer, meeting his eyes. This has nothing to do with me. You stole my money. Give it back. Domingo cried even harder. I don't have anything to pay you with, he stammered, throwing himself dramatically into Robin's arms. Just as I was about to lose it, a neighbor poked their head out and yelled, If you're gonna fight, do it inside! For the sake of appearances, Robin dragged us in. Once the door shut, she wrapped her arms around Domingo, whispering comfort like I didn't even exist. And by the end of it all, she'd decided, without asking, that Domingo would stay. In my room, I said nothing. Just sat there, staring into the quiet for a long while. When she finally came out, she looked around, frowning. Why is your room so empty? I raised an eyebrow. Just tidied up, I lied. I wanted to lend Domingo some of your clothes, she continued, but I couldn't find any. No wonder, I'd already packed everything. I stood up to grab a blanket and sleep on the living room floor, but she caught my hand. He's had it rough, she said gently. Let him stay. Tomorrow he'll leave, okay? Don't be so petty. I laughed under my breath. Then use your own money next time, I said coldly. If you feel so sorry for him, pay me back yourself. Her face turned red with anger. You're unbelievable, she snapped, storming back into the room. Finally, peace. I spread a blanket on the couch, lay back, and smiled to myself. Tomorrow I'd get to see her world crumble. At dawn, we were all awake. Domingo, maybe out of guilt, or maybe for show, insisted on helping me get ready, buzzing around like a best man. But everything he did felt wrong. The hairstyle, the makeup, the smug look on his face. Even his suit was flashier than mine, his makeup more delicate. To any outsider, he would have looked like the groom, not me. Mrs. Kim wanted the ceremony simple, so Robin and I were to leave from the apartment together. But just before stepping out, her face darkened. She grabbed my wrist. Why did you sign up for the graduate exam behind my back? I froze, keeping my expression calm. What are you talking about? She pulled out her phone, showing me a message. You ran off to the internet cafe that day, wasn't it for this? Her grip tightened. You're not allowed to go. I met her eyes. In your dreams. Domingo quickly jumped in, trying to smooth things over. Don't fight today, he said gently. Brother-in-law, if you want to take the exam, then take it. But why hide it from Robin? Didn't you promise to take care of her? I turned to him, my voice ice cold. If you want to take care of her, I said, then do it. Domingo flinched, tears welling in his eyes. He looked at Robin, desperate for her attention, but she didn't even glance at him. Her gaze stayed on me. It's fine, she said calmly. When the time comes, we'll go together. As husband and wife, of course, we should be side by side. And just like that, she slipped back into her perfect smile. When we got to the car, Domingo tried to climb in beside her, but Robin's voice snapped like ice. Take the next car. He blinked, confused. But didn't we agree? Don't waste time, she cut him off. He hesitated, glaring at me before slamming the door and getting into the next car. I closed ours firmly and sat in the front seat, my heart steady. Tomorrow would no longer belong to her. Through the rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of Robin's clenched fists. She always did that when she was nervous, that tiny, involuntary tell. For some reason, it made me want to laugh. What was it, Robin? What are you so afraid of? When we arrived at the venue, she gripped my hand tightly as we walked in. Mrs. Kim's voice reached me first, sharp, dripping with disapproval. "This outfit is completely inappropriate. He knows it's the wedding day and still shows up like this?" Beside her, Domingo jumped in quickly, ever the peacemaker. "Please, Auntie, don't blame Robin. It's my fault. I didn't prepare it well." And just like that, Mrs. Kim's tone softened. "Oh no, it's not your fault, dear. It's him. He's simply not suitable." I rolled my eyes before I could stop myself. But then Robin squeezed my hand, her voice steady, loud enough for everyone, especially Domingo, to hear. "You're the most handsome." I looked at her. Her gaze was gentle, almost convincing, but the time when those words could move me had long passed. Still, I saw Domingo's reaction, a bitter glare that burned into my back. And then we stood before the officiant. The crowd quieted. My pulse raced, not from nerves, but from anticipation. I couldn't wait to ruin the one thing Robin valued most, appearances. The officiant smiled and began the vows. When he turned to me and asked, "Do you take her as your wife?" I looked straight into her eyes. "I do not." The words dropped like a bomb. Gasps rippled through the hall. Robin froze, her face pale with disbelief. You misspoke, didn't you?" "Not at all." I smiled, took the microphone from the officiant and faced the audience. "Today's groom is someone else." Right on cue, the screen behind us lit up. A video, my video, began to play. Scene after scene of Robin and Domingo's stolen moments filled the hall. The whispers started immediately. "Is that Domingo?" "Unbelievable. She's still with him." And then the kiss. In a classroom, their hands tangled, their laughter echoing. Gasps turned to murmurs. Mrs. Kim leapt to her feet. "Turn it off! Turn it off now!" But no one moved. Everyone was watching. I stepped closer to Domingo, yanked him onto the stage. "Look at him," I said, my voice steady. "A suit flashier than mine, makeup more perfect than mine. Tell me, and if he's not the groom, then who is?" Domingo stood frozen, his face drained of color. The crowd erupted, a blur of shocked faces, camera flashes, whispers, outrage. And while chaos swallowed the hall, I slipped on the running shoes hidden beneath my suit and bolted for the exit. By the time Robin regained her senses and tried to chase me, the security guards, and arranged by the wedding planner, an old friend of my father's, stepped in to stop her. She screamed, but it was useless. Every detail had been planned perfectly. Outside, a car waited. I jumped in, slammed the door, and took one last look at the building fading behind me. A new life. Here I come. In my past life, under Robin's careful control, I'd been reshaped into something small, obedient, quiet, numb. Even when I won national engineering awards, she barely looked up. "What's the point?" she'd say. "You'll just stay home and take care of the kids one day." Domingo's different. He's creative, fast, and useful. And I believed her. I tried to change myself, even tried to learn design just to keep up. It was pathetic. The one thing I was good at, engineering, I let slip away. But heaven must have pitied me, because it gave me another chance. This time I wasn't living for her. I was living for me. With nothing but a suitcase in my hand, I boarded a train with my teacher, bound for South City. Watching the scenery blur past the window, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Freedom. The journey took a full day and night, but even exhaustion couldn't dull the lightness in my chest. When we arrived, I treated my teacher and her mentor to dinner, a small gesture of gratitude. I had expected to feel nervous, out of place, but instead I felt calm. Maybe it was because I'd already lived one lifetime. I knew what truly mattered now. The professor seemed impressed by my confidence. His approving gaze gave me even more strength. We exchanged contacts, and from then on, I poured myself into my studies, preparing for my new beginning. Days passed quickly. Life was simple, quiet. My mind, once full of noise, now felt clear. Until the day before the new semester began. I opened my apartment door, and there she was. Robin, disheveled, thinner, eyes red from travel. "It's me," she said, breathless. "I finally found you." She looked wrecked, exhausted, and desperate. "Why did you run off without letting me explain?" "Do you know how long I've been searching for you?" A cold chill ran through me. My mind raced. How had she found me here? Maybe she saw the suspicion in my eyes because she rushed to explain. "You went to buy books, remember? One of the part-time clerks there is my friend. She's studying here too. If not for her, I might have spent my whole life searching inch by inch." and never found you." Her voice trembled, but my heart stayed still. Because this time, I wasn't the one being found. I was the one who had already moved on. I let out a long breath, leaning against the door. No way was I letting her in. "All right," she said softly. "Can you stop being angry now? Let me in." Dragging her suitcase behind her, she tried to push past me, but I blocked the doorway even harder. "There's no need," I said flatly. "I think I made it clear at the wedding. I don't want to marry you. And now I'll add one more thing. I don't even want to see you. Leave." But Robin wouldn't give up. "You were just jealous," she pleaded. "Seeing me with Domingo, it was all a misunderstanding. Please, let me explain." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "A misunderstanding, really? He's had it rough and you take care of him inside and out. What's there to misunderstand?" My words cut deep and I kept going. "I don't like gray suits. And I don't like that heavy perfume on you." Her mouth fell open, but no words came. The color drained from her face. She must have thought she hid it well, taking off her coat before walking in, tossing it into the room before coming out again. But that perfume had already soaked into her skin. Her hands trembled. "It's not like that," she whispered. I ignored her, and while she stood there frozen, I slammed the door shut. Moments later, my phone buzzed, a message from my professor, asking how the preparations were going for tomorrow's enrollment. I told him everything was ready. Then he told me something that made me pause. Over the past few months, Robin, Domingo, and Mrs. Kim had been living in chaos. Their scandal had blown up. The entire city knew. Robin's internship was suspended. Mrs. Kim was so furious she ended up in the hospital, and Domingo, desperate to prove he was better than me, volunteered to care for her. It didn't go well. He undercooked meals, mixed up medicine, even made her take all her pills in a single day. A 2-week recovery turned into 2 miserable months. In the end, Mrs. Kim grew tired of him and started to miss my reliability. When their money ran out, they started selling things from the apartment, only to discover most of it wasn't even theirs. When the landlord told them everything, I couldn't help but laugh. Serves them right. After enrolling, I dove into research on technological construction with my professor. In my past life, I never got to chase my ambitions. This time, I refused to waste even a second. I lived in the lab, eating, sleeping, breathing my work. And then, I saw her again. Robin. She was in the campus infirmary. I was exhausted after days without sleep, and the moment I saw her, my instinct was to turn and leave. But she rushed to me, setting down what she was holding. "Don't go, okay? I've always known you were studying here. I just didn't dare bother you. I thought, if you ever needed anything, maybe I could help." Her voice was soft, almost trembling. It might have sounded sincere to someone else, but to me it was just noise. I tried to pull away. An off-campus hospital would suit me better. But she wouldn't let go. She insisted on helping me to the hospital, her hand gripping mine like a lifeline. I didn't expect her to care this much about my health. Not anymore. But it didn't matter. It was too late. I was too weak to argue, so I let her handle the checkup. I even watched as she counted a few small bills to pay the fee, her hands shaking. She'd never had to struggle like that before. Afterward, she sat beside me while I rested, watching the nurse hook me to an IV. Her voice was gentle. "I only like you," she said. I was confused before, but I'll never make that mistake again. Even the nurse chimed in, smiling. "You should forgive her. She seems like a good girl. You won't find many like her." I looked up at her and said quietly, "You're right. Someone this rotten is hard to find." The nurse froze and walked away. Robin's smile faltered. Her eyes dimmed. After a long silence, she whispered, "I'm sorry. I really am. I just need you to give me one more chance." I'd had enough. "Please," I said, frowning, "just leave." I pulled out 100 yuan and pressed it into her hand. "This covers the bill and a little extra. Isn't money what you're after? Consider it charity." Her lips trembled. "Is that really how you see me?" "How else?" I shot back. "How long do you plan to keep pretending to be innocent?" "Fraud." Her face flushed red with shame and anger. She stood, sat, then stood again, lost for words. I turned my head, unwilling to look at her anymore. Finally, I heard her whisper, "I'll prove myself." Then she sat down again, refusing to leave. I closed my eyes, pretending to rest. I didn't have the energy to care anymore. Would you like me to continue the rewrite from chapter 14 onward in the same Netflix narration tone? I never expected that once word got out I was in the hospital, everyone would rush over to see me. In no time, my classmates filled the room, crowding around my bed and pushing Robin to the side, practically forcing her into the next one. They surrounded me, their voices overlapping, concern, relief, warmth. How are you feeling? Are you okay? You scared us half to death, you know that? I gave a small smile, shook my head, and said quietly, I'm fine. An old acquaintance brought me here, that's all. For a moment, their eyes flicked toward Robin. Then just as quickly, they looked away. Not one person smiled at her, not one. Someone muttered under their breath, so, this is the ex you mentioned? Another scoffed. Tick, she really does look like the manipulative type. No wonder. She won't meet a good end in this life, another added coldly. Robin's face turned pale. Flustered, she tried to defend herself, stammering out explanations, but each time she opened her mouth, someone from my group cut her off, shutting her down without mercy. And me? I just sat there watching. For the first time, I didn't have to speak. They spoke for me. In my previous life, I had spent every day walking on eggshells, cautious, diligent, silent. And yet, I'd been alone. Even my death had been lonely and humiliating. But this time, watching everyone standing around me, defending me, choosing my side, I felt something move deep in my chest. It was strange. I hadn't realized how much warmth I'd been missing until that moment. Robin looked at me again, eyes wide, searching for even a flicker of sympathy. When she found none, she faltered, her shoulders dropping, her voice dying in her throat. At last, she gave up and turned away, deflated completely. Robin didn't leave the school. Instead, she chose to stay on as the campus doctor. To be honest, with her medical talent, it was a waste. She could have gone far. But she refused every offer her professor brought her. I want to stay here, she said once. I need to atone. Her words made my skin crawl. Atonement? That wasn't redemption, and it was obsession. After I returned from the hospital, she started leaving little gifts outside my dorm room every day. Fruit, snacks, herbal drinks, all the things suitable for my recovery. But I never accepted any of it. I gave everything to the dorm auntie without a second thought. And so we fell into a quiet standoff. Days turned to weeks. Weeks into a month. Neither of us said a word to the other. Then one day, Domingo appeared. He showed up at the school gates, limping, asking anyone who passed by, "Do you know where Robin is?" His clothes were worn, his face haggard, his leg dragging slightly behind him. Around that time, I'd already noticed something strange about Robin. She kept clutching her stomach, avoiding eye contact. It wasn't long before I noticed the small swell beneath her clothes. She must have been at least 3 months pregnant. I did the math in my head. The timing matched perfectly, around when Mrs. Kim had been hospitalized. A sour taste rose in my throat. I was utterly disgusted. That same night, I sent Domingo an anonymous message. I told him everything. The next afternoon, I saw him again at the campus gate. He was shouting, crying, clutching Robin's wrist as she struggled to pull away. "I don't care what you say," he yelled, tears streaking his dirt-covered face. "You're carrying my child. My leg's ruined because of you. You owe me. You have to take responsibility." Students had gathered, whispering, staring. Robin's face was pale as chalk. Then she saw me across the courtyard, takeout bag in hand. Her eyes filled with desperate pleading. But I didn't move. It wasn't my problem anymore. When my food arrived, I picked it up, turned around, and walked away without looking back. A few days later, I noticed a new doctor in the infirmary. Curious, I asked a classmate what happened. Apparently, Domingo had gone to the principal in tears, begging him to dismiss Robin so she could take care of him instead. The principal had sighed, rubbed his temples, and finally waved his hand. "It's not like the school doctor position is vital," he'd said. "Let her go." And just like that, she was gone. I later heard bits and pieces of what came next. Domingo forced Robin to marry him when she returned home. Her professor came looking for her several times, trying to help her start over. But Domingo turned him away each time, terrified that if he let her go, she'd never come back. She eventually gave birth, found a modest job near her hometown, and lived quietly, unseen, unremarkable. A lifetime of mediocrity. Meanwhile, I graduated. I threw myself into the work of rebuilding and designing for my country, projects that consumed me, fulfilled me. By 30, I had returned home decorated with honors. One day, while passing through an old street corner, I saw a woman sweeping outside a dilapidated building. Her back was bent, her hands rough, her hair streaked with gray. She looked older than her years, tired and small. It took me a moment to realize it was Robin. That fleeting moment became the last time I ever saw her. Months later, I overheard colleagues talking about a fire that broke out in a rundown residential block. The victims' names? Domingo and Robin. They had perished together, trapped in the flames of the life they'd built, or perhaps the life they'd ruined. I could only sigh, a faint trace of pity rising in my chest. The world truly has a dark sense of irony.